of the items, just like the city manager just mentioned. I think, yeah, we just talk what you want to. Also, it represents what is most important in your mind. Yes, and just freely talk, because everything we have the records, we have recording, so we were not missing any important points. Just go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'd like to say with regards to the tree committee, I've served on that committee for probably 6 years. And I was always under the impression that one of the reasons we did that is that we would actually be saving the city time and energy, because we were commissioners who were going out and analyzing various trees that had a request to be pulled down. So I was surprised by the report from the city that it was kind of I kind of interpreted it as kind of a hassle or a lot of time to get the agendas ready for the tree committee. I must admit that when we meet with the arborists, it's generally the arborist who really does have the final say, because they generally have the history and they have the knowledge of the trees and the botany, even though some of us have that also. But we generally go with what the arborist said, so I understand that administratively. But I think one of the things that we've discovered is that trees are a hugely important issue for the public, and they can get really wild about the discussion about either letting their tree stay up or come down. And so there has to be a public forum for someone to be able to come and discuss taking down their trees. I can see the need for trying to make save time and energy. And again, I'm repeating myself, but the arborist generally says kind of what we two people do, but we have to, putting just a ribbon around the tree and saying, if you happen to see a ribbon, then call the city, that's not going to be enough. I think you're going to have a huge outburst if you start to take down trees without a public forum. And then my second comment just about the dogs, I feel like I have become a cop on the plaza. So I go up to people all the time and basically say, I think you just may not be aware that you can't have your dog in here and you're going to get a ticket. And I know nobody ever gets a ticket because there isn't any really reinforcement. But so I am 100% supportive of doing that as a trial period to see if it works, to see if it, in fact, people do take care of their feces and all of that kind of thing. But that would have to be a good PR policy to say, we're going to try this for 3 months, public, and see how it works. So those are my comments right now.
That's great. Thank you, Commissioner Blattner. Commissioner Weiss.
Thank you. I'd like to reinforce Commissioner Helleback's point about the importance of public participation and how the commission acts as a conduit to give the public an opportunity to voice its opinion collectively. And also, I've noticed, as one of the newer members on the committee, a lack of clarity in the values and guidelines that we are supposed to be using with regard to approving events. And I think some of the issues that have come up, and I think Commissioner Morrow mentioned this also, some of the problems have been around that lack of clarity. So I would look forward very much to having the council provide some guidelines that would enable decisions to be made with more clarity and transparency and alignment in the future.
Thank you, Commissioner Weiss. Any more comments? Oh, Councilmember Lowe, please.
Yeah, Mayor Ding, you may notice that some of us, I see Mr. Allebach is doing the same thing, are using the Zoom hand raising feature. Okay. And so
I saw that.
You may want to just take a look at that.
Right. Thank you.
That being said, that I wanted to thank Commissioner Blattner for her comments regarding the trees. As someone who almost had 71 trees taken down in my neighborhood, and I had to get it on the city council agenda in order to save them. I know all too well the difficulty that residents have sometimes. And arborists, you know, when I didn't really know anything much about arborists, but I thought arborists were people that were like really liked trees. I found out arborists are sometimes people who find them to be just in their way. You know, it's just was a little bit of a befuddled me at first when the arborist said, you know, take them all out. They're all terrible trees. I mean, it's as a former classroom teacher, Miss Blattner and I can relate, you know, that sometimes you have to deal with the troubled students just like the troubled trees, because they all grow into something wonderful, and you should just, you know, maybe nurture them a little bit. So anyway, I appreciate those comments. I am concerned a little bit about the dogs on the plaza. I just think about my own dogs, who are always very lovely, but the worst behaved creatures on the planet. I mean, they just wanted to jump and kiss everybody. They're really, you know, the golden retriever, never met anyone they didn't love, right? And leash, you know, didn't matter. So I'm just worried about, you know, accidents and so forth, you know, people tripping over leashes and so forth. It's just such a confined area. So I do have some concerns about that. And I'm a dog, I love dogs. So it's not about that. So I appreciate the comments. My question is, and I'm new and I don't really know if I'm following all the protocol, and I apologize if I'm not. Are we dealing mainly with the Plaza Park? Are there other parks under the authority of because there are other parks, and there are potentially more parks. For example, I'm looking at a piece of property that's zoned for a park on the west side that would like to be developed actually into a dog park. And I'm wondering if this body takes a look at that, or what the process is. So it's just a question. Maybe people can let me know. Thanks. Thank you all for doing this work. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sandra. And Commissioner Alabak, please.
Thank you, Mayor Ding. I'll take a quick run through these items again, because I thought we were going to start on number 1, but I guess we're going to do all 3. Speak to Councilmember Vice Mayor Barnett's points. I think that it's important that whatever the CSEC does, that it have some meaningful depth for the commissioners, and you know, whether it be, you know, expanding the scope that Vice Mayor Barnett said, or whatever it is we do, that it be a meaningful slate of activities that we could do. So let me scroll through here. I do want to find out what the schedule of the Parks Rec and Parks Task Force is coming up as a question. For special events on the plaza, that when I started out on the CSEC, we were looking at the budget and all sorts of things about it, and it just took hours and hours to get through it. And I wondered, why are we looking at all these budgets if we don't really have anything to say about them? And so eventually, as a commissioner, what I came to seeing special events on the plaza as basically a social good that everybody likes. Like, all events are good, and so some of them maybe have problems with trash pickup or whatever, but those kind of things were things that Lisa could handle on a routine basis, so that, you know, it's kind of come that we only get special events now that have, you know, a particular problem or some other special thing about them. And so then still it can just eat up a bunch of time talking about these events. And so it does seem, you know, in my mind, since I see the events as basically a social good, and that they're meted out to not be too many over a year's time, that Lisa has been doing a great job. But what happens if Lisa goes and you don't have somebody like Lisa there? You know, a lot of times things are contingent on a particular person. So I think, if we could keep Lisa forever, then it would be great to put, that as a staff function. But I don't think that they need that much oversight unless there's a problem. And like every 3 years, the farmers market has a huge blow up. Everyone's really up in arms about it. And then, the commission, or, that's gone to the city council. So, there's really nothing about the events that really don't come down to a city council decision anyway. So I think that that's kind of fine to move that more to a staff function. For the tree committee, I agree with Commissioner Blattner, and I think also the tree committee could be a forum for urban forestry and the canopy in the city. There's other functions that could be really interesting for that committee to work on besides basically, the trees pushing up the sidewalk, let's cut it down kind of stuff. Now for item number 2, I believe the CSEC has made a number of recommendations already to the city about bike racks, and I'm not sure why the bike racks that we've recommended have not been put up already. I mean, this is years of bike rack talk, so I'm kind of surprised that bike racks is still there, or that people have trouble with some of the ones and not recognizing it's a bike rack, because when I'm down there with my bike, I lock my bike to whatever I can. So I'm not worried if it looks like modern art. If I can lock my bike to it, then that's a bike rack for me. And then for the dogs on leash in the plaza, I was looking at the attendees list and I was going, I wonder why Bob Edwards is here. And now I know. and so, I'm not really opposed to it. I think that, now that the weather has gotten better, I got brand new sneakers and I stepped in dog dew twice in my brand new sneakers. It's like childhood trauma. And so I have a little bit of a concern that with the farmers markets and other family outings and kids at the playground there, that may be an incompatible use, because you're just going to end up with uncleaned up business there. So I think it's fine to try it on a trial basis, but if you don't have money for enforcement, who goes and picks stuff up that other people don't pick up? Where is there going to be money for that? So that's just a kind of few more iterations on these items here.
Thank you, Chair Alabak.
So I mentioned, this is Madeline, I've heard with respect to dogs on the plaza, and I have to quote you, Kimberly, we're not good on enforcement, so I don't think, we see dogs on the plaza all the time. and if we're gonna do something temporary, it has to include the dispensers with the dog poop bags. People aren't going to bring takeout boxes and put it in there, so we have to provide them with some kind of a service. And I don't know what that would mean. I don't know how many that would mean on the plaza, but I don't know. We need to enforce it, and maybe more people will realize. And there are signs, but I don't know what that means. So I know it's annoying. And Kimberly, I honor you for approaching people, because, not that I'm afraid, but I just don't want to get into a scuffle. So, thank you for doing that. But I think if we're going to have something, I wouldn't mind temporary, but it has to be enforced.
Commissioner Metzler.
Can you hear me now?
All right. Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. I had comments on 2 areas. First of all, regarding dogs on the plaza, I do think that it is an incompatible use, because I had recently also had the experience of stepping in it. And I think no matter how thoughtful people are And how much information you provide. If you allow dogs, even on leash, there will be an increase of dog do on the ground that people will end up stepping in, and I think that's a big problem. I also do want to make sure everybody's aware that the new state law requiring composting of all organic materials specifically exempts dog and cat waste. So that has to go in. That's one more enforcement thing that I don't think we have the ability to take care of. Anyway, regarding the bike racks issue, I am really surprised to see that the staff report didn't include any of the information of the lengthy discussions we have had. I have met with the previous 2 or 3 public works directors. It came to the city council. The city council, a proposal was made of bike racks. It came to the city council. The city council voted it down a couple of years ago. And I don't think most of the current city council members were on the council at the time that happened. I think that information should have been provided to the council in the staff report, because I feel as I mentioned in the special meeting that we had starting at 4:30 today, that a lot of these issues it's like we have to revisit the same issue over and over and over after it's been decided. That the city staff and the commission and the council has spent a lot of time on bike rack issues, and that was completely omitted from the report is really surprising to me. Most of you, I think, received the information from the director, Eris Weaver, the director of Sonoma County Bicycle Coalition, about the severe lack of bike parking on the plaza. It really becomes an issue in special events where people are blocking their bikes all over the place and creating hazards, blocking traffic. There's been repeated problems of the vendors at special events using the bike racks as a stand to attach their booths to. The pop-up tents are being attached to the bike racks. They don't even realize that they're bike racks. So we really need improved bike racks. The reason why the bike rack proposal that the Public Works came up when it came up to the council a few years ago involved the installing a cement pad. The Public Works said that the bike rack had to be on a cement pad. Now, we've all seen bike racks, lots of other places that are just put on the ground, on the grass, on gravel or wood chips. But the Public Works said that it had to be on a cement pad because it wasn't possible to clean adequately otherwise. Anyway, there's a severe woeful lack of bike parking. The city really needs to do something in bike parking. All of this is in the public record from the meetings that happened a couple of years ago, and I think that all of that should be brought up. All that information should be provided to the current council, and a decision needs to be made right away about what's going to happen with the bike racks on the plaza.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Commissioner Donnelly. Unmute, please. Unmute.
I'm sorry.
It's fine.
I'm new to Zoom. I want to speak briefly about the tree committee. I'm the second commissioner member with Commissioner Blattner on the tree committee. And in early November, when I heard that there was consideration of dissolving the tree committee, I sent an email to all of you. I will send it again. But it basically argued that there are some reasons why we should continue to find ways to keep citizen participation, even on something like the tree committee. And basically it was, one reason is that it offers a citizen oversight by sitting in on the decisions with the staff and the arborists. We also get an education as to how these decisions are being made and learn. And then we become in turn, thirdly, an advocate for this. We can explain. I've already, on the time that I've been on it, met with a number of people in the community to explain the city's tree ordinance and what it involves and why it's necessary. But also it's a key element of the climate action plan, that increasing the tree canopy is a major way in which we can address this. I've met with the Sonoma Ecology Center Earthlings a number of times in the last few months, and they're eager to start increasing the tree canopy here in the city. And then another reason is I think citizen participation is important because we know that it's often an avenue by which people become interested to run for the election to the city council. We often wonder why more people don't run, but my understanding is that many people do this because they start by participating in a city committee or commission. So I would hope that we could find some hybrid model, if necessary, to keep the citizen participation even on the tree committee. Maybe a way to reduce the administrative, improve administrative efficiency, but keep the citizen participation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Donnelly. I would like to say something. And first of all, thank you for everyone, Commissioner and Mr. Alabak. He basically just like the expert for everything. I have been working with the Commissioner Alabak for more than 10 years. And I know how important it is. We are so lucky live and work here in the Sonoma because we have so many educated, concerned, and local volunteers. And basically, sometimes government couldn't do enough work that the volunteers did. Volunteers did a lot of the government work. So now I think in the future, we should promote your commission's leadership, and also get in a partnership with another nonprofit organization. And within a county, for example, a groundwater, the commission, and where Alabak, the work with there. So a lot of the education information we needed to spread it over. And also, I think that right now we don't have a lot of the money available for the allocation, but definitely I want to support. And in the future, and we need to have the more fund to support an environmental commission. So I believe Environment Commission, we can give him a nickname. That is the future commission. Even right now, we're making a little bit of investment, find an assistant for Lisa and Jensen, and we can do a lot of the things because right now I see we have a lot of the good ideas, but we lack of the source to carry that out for the implementation. So if the wise, the local government, I would like to support, have the more investment and for this commission, that means for the future. And then also the public participation. And the last time I was attending your meeting, and I saw you have the youth commissioner, and I forgotten her name. She was very, very, active, and also sounds like understand everything. I feel like very fresh because she has her voice, her generation's in voice. How we can improve on the relationship between the existing on the commission and also the school district. I know the Councilman Lowe is working on this, and in the future we can work closer. As that the tree committee, also I know support. The trees, not only in the tree, take care and the maintenance. Also tell the people the history, tell the people the future. Remind, especially for young kids, we need to take care. This is the very valuable stuff. So that is the mine and the comments. Again, I want to say thank you for everyone. So that any, the questions, I believe our staff will give us the answers or questions. Yeah, we still can discuss. City Manager, Mr. Toy. do you have any,
Oh, sorry. Had trouble with my iPad's dying. Sorry, I had to start charging it. I would say I do have questions for the group based on some of the comments, but maybe you might want to see if there's public comment just on the items, unless there's further questions.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so now, also we needed to, okay. Yeah. So now right now, I would like to open to the public. If any, comments right now, it's your time. Rebecca, do you see any?
Dean, we have Chris Weaver.
Okay.
Let me see, Latanya. It's gonna.
Hey, thank you. Again, I'm Eris Weaver. I'm the executive director of the Sonoma County Bicycle Coalition. I'm not going to repeat any of the stuff that was in the very lengthy piece that I sent you all, complete with photographs about bike parking on the plaza. But I just wanted to tag off of Commissioner Metzler's comment about how long it's been that this has been being talked about. I just dug through my my records, and it was over a year ago that a city staff person contacted me asking me to be on some committee looking at putting in bike parking and other things in the city that then never happened. Bike racks are cheap. A bike rack is like $100. That's if you just buy it as one on Amazon. If you're buying bulk, it's a lot cheaper. So I don't see, how much we're talking has to happen for something so simple as some metal U's drilled and screwed into the ground. Anyway, I will, and to tag off of Commissioner Alabak's comments about, you can lock my bike on anything that it'll lock on. And you've seen from those photos, that's something people do. They're locked all over the place when there's not a suitable rack because they're, so they're falling on the sidewalk or obstructing doorways because many of the racks that are there don't allow you to securely lock the frame and the rear wheel of your bike with a heavy U-lock so it isn't stolen or able to be cut, which is the problem with most of the racks that are there. So I will leave it at that. But again, I'm always happy to come and make recommendations and work with you rather than against you to get this to happen already. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Weaver. Thank you for your support.
Next, Tom Conlon.
Hi, Mr. Conlon. That is your turn. Tom.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I appreciate the conversation tonight. I've noticed that on the city's assignments calendar that the Joint Climate Action Committee and the Housing Committee are stated as having no discernible purpose. And so I'm glad that this discussion, hopefully that will change after reviewing this discussion tonight. I like dogs, I like trees, I like bikes. I don't like dog poop, and I especially don't like dog bites and the liability that comes from dog bites. I would hope that the city considers that before changing current policy. There are so many fabrics, so many choices to make, and these are very important decisions. We got blue windmills on a white background. You could have blue windmills on a taupe background. You could have white windmills on a blue background. Whenever a ship is sinking, especially a large ship with an especially fragile economy and social cohesion, adrift in a warming sea, it is absolutely critical that the cushions on the deck chairs be well selected so that they truly and accurately reflect the community's character and the values of that community when they're rearranged. I feel that for us to be talking about these matters in such an august group as is assembled here of the joint committee, we just have our priorities completely inverted. City of Sonoma has the highest vehicle miles traveled per capita in the county. The city of Sonoma has been trying to make progress on the bike parking, as the previous speaker indicated, for at least 5 years. I remember Amy Harrington talking about it when she was still on the Community Service and Environment Commission. I spoke with it's like 3 city managers back about the value of using the CSEC as a settling pond for climate action. And what it's turned into is a playpen for climate action to be debated, but then for policies to die and never actually be implemented. We just simply have run out of time. And I, everybody knows that I've been a dedicated advocate and member of civil society. I am beyond frustration and losing faith in the political process in our city. And I don't know where to go next. If I cannot get action from this committee and the political process as it is structured, I will have to take other tactics into consideration because we have a climate crisis.
That's time, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tom, for your contribution to our community. We really appreciate it.
Next, we have Bob Edwards.
Hi, folks. I'm
Hi.
glad to see you all, and I'm glad to see a number of recognized notorious dog lovers on this screens in front of me. I just a couple of comments. Those of you who know me know that I've long advocated for dogs. I was a former head of the president of SV Dog. I left that organization a number of years ago for family reasons. But I would just like to make a couple of comments. I would encourage you to consider a trial period of allowing dogs on the plaza. I would suggest that it extend for a year or some other significant period. And I'm just going to throw out a couple of bullet comments in no particular order because I know you're all highly intelligent and able to absorb them erratically, if I can say that. Number one, I think there are about 73 million dogs in the country and somewhat less than that number of children. I leave it to you to determine who has caused more problems in the country, dogs or kids. Same thing in the city of Sonoma. Yes, there are dogs that bite people, but there are kids that shoot people in schools in mass shootings. So let's not try to pick out a few dogs out of the hundreds of dogs we have in the city and say, this is a reason we should ban them. I think there are probably more dogs in the city of Sonoma right now than there are children. You could double check that with the licensing with the sheriff's office. Another thing I would comment that in allowing a trial period for dogs on leashed dogs on the plaza, that there also be some added enforcement. If anyone can find a cop on the plaza or in town for that matter, and I know we're paying them good money to the sheriff's office to provide police protection, I would love to see them. I walk around that plaza with my dogs. I emphasize around the plaza with my dogs almost every day. And I have never seen a policeman in the plaza except on farmers market night. Now, of course, on farmers market, the state law prohibits dogs from being in the plaza, in the farmers market. And I have no problem with that. Fine, let's go with the state law. But I think you need to give this a chance because the city of Sonoma is notoriously dog unfriendly. But for a couple of things, I think you ought to consider all of the stores, virtually all of the stores around the plaza allow dogs in the stores. Restaurants allow dogs to eat in their outside areas. Okay, now these are profit-making businesses that you would think they would not want dogs if these dogs were going to bite people and poop on the ground and do all these bad things. And to those who have occasionally be unfortunate enough to step in dog poop, I say,
hi, Mr. Mayor.
My father told me years ago, watch where you're going. It doesn't take
Hi, Bob. Time is over, but you still have 30 seconds. Yep.
Okay, 30 seconds. I think you need to consider the dog issue also in connection with the bike issue, which you're spending a lot of time on. There's a sign on the posts in the plaza that say, no dogs, no bikes. So you're spending a lot of time finding where to put the bicycle racks for people who bring bicycles into the plaza where they're not allowed. So I would just, and if you're interested in consistency and don't want people to question your mental awareness, then I think you ought to consider allowing a trial period. I would be more than happy to volunteer my time to structure the regulations, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm sure that dogs will behave far better than the people in the plaza. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Next, Mr. Mayor, we have Douglas Wood.
All right. Hi, Mr. Wood. This is your turn.
Hi there. As a youth soccer coach here in the Valley, I can attest to the travesty of having children inadvertently step in dog feces. It's terrible. And I'm a dog lover. My parents own a dog. They clean up after the dog. I clean up after the dog. The problem is that people don't clean up after dogs. And I'm thinking in particular, pre-pandemic, the number of people and crowd saturation of the plaza, the number of people picnicking and sitting on the ground with their children. I just don't think that it's wise. And I also want to pose this question to everyone on this committee. Why is this being considered? Why can't people leave their dogs at home? I've seen a number of dog fights break out at dog parks and in other places where dogs are either on leash or off leash. And again, I want to remind people, contrary to the former speaker's assertion that people need to look where they're stepping, young children are unlikely to be as aware of their surroundings as adults. And stepping in dog feces is a real, it's lame. It's unacceptable. And we have to account for that. I see no reason to allow dogs on the plaza at all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Any more comments?
It doesn't appear that anyone else is raising their hand, Ms.
All right. Let's get back to our meeting. So council and join to the meeting. City Manager, Mr. Toy, do you have anything you want to specifically?
Sure. So I have a few follow-up questions for this joint meeting. And I'm just pointing out some of the points made by some either from the CSEC or the council. So with regard to the joint climate action subcommittee, I think someone raised a thing about they think it's fine for the committee to take that responsibility, but perhaps you can expand the committee. I'm wondering, is that what the majority are thinking might be a good idea, to expand the members of that committee? And then when we say expand, you can't have more than 2 council members, but are we saying more CSC members? Of course, you're limited to a quorum too, or you're talking about members of the public who can apply. That's one question. I'll just go through it. It seemed like most of the comments were related to keeping the tree committee as currently structured. Bike racks, I just need to point out, really the question on bike racks is if the group is saying we should have more bike racks, then I would go back to the CSEC. We could talk about your plan from 2 years ago and then bring it back to the council for consideration. I don't know if you want to talk about special events criteria a little bit more, and Lisa's here available to do that. And with regard to the Recreation Task Force, it appeared to me that perhaps a suggestion would be that since the task force is really in its beginning stages, that perhaps they need to get a little further along. And then once you report back to the CSEC, then maybe the Recreation Task Force and the CSEC can decide what's the next step moving forward. So those were kind of my major, I guess, questions or comments that I received. I think I gleaned from this discussion.
Mr. Amara?
Thank you, Mayor Ding. With the agenda bouncing all over the place this evening, I would like to consider two proposals. I assume that that may be in order. If not, they're simply suggestions for further confab. Following on what Mr. Conlon said so eloquently, I would remind us all that we have as a city passed a climate emergency resolution, and it's time to begin seriously and effectively to implement that emergency resolution. With respect to the climate emergency joint committee, I would propose adding 3 members: a youth member, perhaps appointed by the high school environment committee or another way to get us a good youth member, a nonprofit member from one of our active nonprofits in the local area to be a regular member of this joint committee, and perhaps one more commissioner from the CSEC without jumping over the quorum numbers. And I would repeat and more explicitly what I started with an hour or so ago. I believe we need, as we review special events on the plaza, to give the CSEC the power, the authority to make specific amendments to what's being proposed by staff for final review and approval or disapproval by the city council. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Namara. Vice Mayor Barnett, please.
Thank you, Mayor Ding. If we're talking about a climate committee that's focused specifically on climate issues and how the city of Sonoma implements our, net zero 2030, I believe, I would be in favor of actually creating a new committee separate from the CSEC. And so if we want to constitute it and have different requirements or qualifications that we're looking for on this committee, that would be fine. But I would support actually at this point, if we're just going to have council and CSEC on it, I would actually probably, and I'm open to obviously ideas and talking about this, but if we're going to expand the membership, in my view, that's sort of starting to look like a new committee. And so maybe since the CSEC is charged with various things and we're talking right now about charging it with even more, perhaps we take climate out of the CSEC and put it in a new committee. So that's one idea. Number two, back to bike parking, which I didn't discuss in my earlier comments because, as people have mentioned, we're sort of all over the place with this agenda. As Commissioner Metzler said, we a few years ago discussed bike parking. I think it's been more than a few years. I think it's 5 years ago. And a bike parking proposal went before the city council, and I believe they denied it. With the idea, at that point, the concrete pads, which, as he mentioned, Public Works said would be required for bike parking, was not appropriate for the plaza, et cetera. And so, I guess at this point, I'm surprised. I guess Commissioner Metzler wants council to reconsider that decision, but I would support reconsidering the bike parking on the plaza. I do believe we need more bike parking on the plaza, but we need, in my view, that, as I've discussed this past year, it's one of our council priorities. We're creating a plaza master plan. We're talking about improvements to the plaza, and bike parking would obviously be part of that. But maybe it's just the way I am, so I'm clearly just rearranging deck chairs on a sinking ship here. But I think the aesthetics of bike parking on the plaza is very important. And so I would like Public Works to look at bike parking in grass or decomposed granite or something. And I would like them to be similar to bike parking in Petaluma and other places that have like their little city logo, et cetera. Basically part of an overall master plan to upgrade our plaza. We need better trash receptacles. We need better bike parking. We need better everything. And city staff has known this for 5 years and nothing has happened. And so in my view, I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference whether we put bike parking in there next week versus a year from now, if it fits in with the aesthetics of our national landmark plaza. And I think that we can find bike parking appropriate that matches with the plaza like every other historic park and historic district around the country has. And so I think if other places can have it, so can Sonoma, and hopefully it won't take too long. But I do believe we need aesthetically appropriate but expanded bike parking on the plaza.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Barnett. Chair Alabak, please. Unmute, please.
Thank you. Yes, know that Kathy Capriola hired a special assistant who was doing a plaza plan and a connectivity plan, and I wonder if anything happened to that. That seemed to be fairly far along, and I'm not sure what became of that. I like Vice Mayor Barnett's suggestion to make a whole new committee for climate. I think that would be a great idea, and I second Tom Collins' comments. I think at the beginning of City Manager Toy's tenure, I raised a little bit of a stink about urgency with the city's climate measures, and it seemed like I really, it didn't really get anywhere in terms of stimulating the urgency that I felt was needed. So I don't know. I think that citizens and people who are reading the news and who are watching the science are really concerned, and they will hope that their avatar of government here, the local city government, would do what they can. And so I know that the city can't solve all of the climate problems of the whole world, but my only hope is that what the city would do would be proportional for what if the whole world, 10,000 people did, then we would solve the problem. So I think that's a reasonable ask, and I'm not sure if we are or not, in terms of all the different climate things that we could be doing. But, I'm concerned, but I don't have all the answers. And if I felt like, I could really get behind and pull on this and make a difference, I would be really willing to work hard on it. But I feel like I'm kind of punching my way out of a paper bag on a lot of this in some respects. So, the CSEC got the Climate Action 2020 plan years back when Amy Harrington was on the CSEC, and just seems like a long time that things just don't move along very fast. And so I don't know. I just thought I would mention a few things like that, just to put them on the table.
Thank you, Fred. How about Lisa Jensen? Do you have any comments or any questions for City Council and the commissioners? Right now, it's your time. We cannot hear you.
Sorry, I double mute myself when I'm working from home. So lots of kids and animals running around here. So I think in regards to, I think it was like item 1, the recreation and future report of the community recreation and parks task force. I think, we haven't completed any of the phases yet. We have 3 in progress. I think, as soon as we get closer to having something set and report out, we will definitely, our goal is to bring it to the CSEC. And I think in December, Karen and Steve presented to the just a brief under public comment update to City Council. So I think my goal over the next, hopefully, couple months, we'll be able to bring a report to the CSEC, and then as we complete the phases, I think it's going to become clearer on what the needs are and how the CSEC and the recreational task force integrate together, or maybe it evolves into something totally different as we're talking about adding another committee. So I think that's my comment on item 1A. Under, let's see, Park Plaza special event permits. You know, we have pulled some of the events out of, well, we revised the policy back in, gosh, was it 2019? And pulled some of the event information or the event approvals out of the CSEC if the events were in good standing. I think David Morrell has brought up a few times tonight the desire to want to make specific changes to events during the approval process. And I think one of the items that, you know, I kind of have pushed back on, and I will just, I'm laying down on my sword here, was the desire to ask events to get registration data on where the attendees were coming from. And so I think with the goal to be able to extrapolate kind of the impact of how they're getting to events, the attendees, how attendees are getting to events, and the impact on our climate. And I know David and the CSCC and myself and a few of the event managers have gone round and round on this item. So I think I would like to hear from City Council and this committee what your thoughts are around kind of putting the focus or implementing a greenhouse gas emission survey and putting that squarely on the shoulders of our nonprofits, who most of our events don't collect registration data. So it'd be an additional, volunteer recruitment and take additional time and effort to implement. So I'd love to hear that discussed a little bit more tonight. Have any comments on the tree committee? Let's see. As far as the Plaza Park improvements and the bike racks, I would love to see that topic come back up. I've been involved in it for 3 years now on the Fringe, and I think it would be neat to kind of rediscuss whether or not we're willing to look at taking parking spaces away and putting the bike parking in a parking spot. So I think those are kind of my comments for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Commissioner Blattner.
I'd like to know, Lisa, what your thought was about the dogs, because you certainly have a lot of knowledge about what goes on in the special events and in the park.
Yes, I will tell you, being the manager of the Tuesday night farmers market and being on site at every event that takes place in the plaza, dogs are an issue. Everyone wants to bring a dog. I've had, I like Kimberly, feel the need to go up and have a thoughtful discussion with people when I see their dogs in the plaza, because I believe, we have it posted no dogs, and I feel like we should do something to enforce it. And I think the expectation of the community is that it's posted no dogs and we should enforce it. And so I get a lot of our community members coming to the market table during a Tuesday night, at least one or two a week, saying, there's a dog over here, can you please come and deal with this? So I think we could try a trial. But again, I do find, when you have that, especially for events, and so I'm going to speak with my event perspective here. When you have that many people on the plaza and mix dogs into the mix, I have witnessed dog fights. I've witnessed dogs charging into people picnicking on the ground. I have witnessed at the end of a Tuesday night market the dog smear of feces on the concrete. So I leave this in your hands to come up with a decision. I just think the expectation of the community, because the signs that are up there, is that we're going to enforce it. And it's fallen on deaf ears as far as me trying to get support on enforcing the no dog policy here in the plaza. And it becomes a burden of the event managers or organizers and myself, and it's a lot of work. So. Thank you.
Again, Lisa. Yeah. Any more comments or any good ideas? Or Mr. Toy, do we need to have some of the motion for those kind of the item we discuss at the tree committee and the climate change committee and the dog?
Well, it seems like there are so many different things going on. To me, it's not clear for some of these things if there's consensus. So now I've come to a different recommendation for this joint committee is you've had this joint discussion and we've talked about a lot of things. I think I would recommend that why doesn't staff go back to the CSEC? We'll get a recommendation from the CSEC on these lists of items of how they'd like to see it move forward. I'll take that to the council, and then the council could weigh in on which things they like to pursue, which things they agree on, and maybe that will provide a little more clarity on these actions. So you'll get an official recommendation from the CSEC on a variety of these topics, and then the council could weigh in at a council meeting which ones you'd like staff to pursue. I think at this point, that's what I'm recommending is how we proceed, assuming that the majority of this group thinks that's a good idea.
I think also this is a good idea. Any comments or from the commissioners? Councilmember Agramonte.
Sure. Thank you, Garrett. I think that's a good idea. It comes, I guess the direction is what's next. And so I agree with you. However, there are some things that many of you have spoken, discussed, and shared. Something's been there 3 years, 2 years. So maybe that has to be expressed how long that's just been sitting on a table and not being discussed. And maybe that will actually add some importance to the issue.
Thank you, Councilmember Agramonte. Mr. Choi, do we need to open to public at this time?
No, you've received all your public comment.
Okay.
But
all right.
It'd be up to you if you wanted to open it back up.
All right.
I would say I think you've heard from everyone.
Thank you. All right. So any good thoughts? And
oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. There's one last thing. I don't know if Travis is still on. The one thing we didn't talk about is the schedule for CSCC meetings, and I'm not sure if Travis is on. If you wanted to say something about that.
Yeah, 2022. Right, right now, so current is quarterly, right? Every the 3 months.
That's in the code.
Okay.
Within the code, it's every quarter, but I believe they're meeting every other month, which the off month being the meeting of the JC, well, the Joint Climate Action Subcommittee. But I think Travis wanted some guidance. But I think if Travis could, if he's still on, could say something, that would be great.
Yes.
Yes, I just wanted to bring it up because it's kind of, well, it's not kind of, it's haphazard because as a staff person, I staff both the CSCC and the Joint Climate Action Subcommittee. So we've been trying to do it every other month, sort of, but because of various events, it's been pretty haphazard. So it was just a thought, is this something that's worthy of discussion? But I think it really depends on the changes are there modifications to the mission and role of the CSCC and the Joint Climate Action Subcommittee? That would really, I think, help shape the calendar. So I just wanted to bring it up that it's something that's been an issue ever since the Joint Climate Action Subcommittee has been created. Thank you.
Thank you, Travis. I would like to listen to more from you because you are the environment and the expert. Today you didn't talk a lot. So do I miss anybody or point? Oh, yeah, Commissioner Alabak, please.
In terms of the schedule for the CSEC and the Climate Action Joint Committee, I'm in favor of having them meet every other month, which would be 6 a year rather than 4 a year, which would be quarterly. So I think that the climate emergency merits as many as we can per year, and that every other month is necessary to keep people involved. That if you don't have some workload and stuff to work on, then you don't really get invested. So I think that a certain frequency of meetings is necessary to foster the kind of involvement that you want to have from volunteers, and that you don't forget everything from the last meeting when it's like 2 months later. So that kind of continuity is important. So I would be in favor of having them every other, or as much as we can. And that if there is a way that can be scheduled, so that if a meeting gets dropped because of the Christmas holiday season, that would be the CSEC and not the Climate Action Joint Subcommittee, if a meeting had to be dropped.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Commissioner Donnelly, please.
Well, following up on City Manager Toy's suggestion, I would hope that the CSEC would meet within the next month so that we could develop those recommendations that he's requesting to go to the council.
That's great. Yeah. Speed up a little bit. Yeah, that's great.
Can I just answer that? Sorry. The next scheduled meeting for the CSEC is the second Wednesday of March, because currently the second Wednesday of February has been set aside for the Joint Climate Action Subcommittee. That's the schedule right now, but it's up to you all.
That is a Wednesday, second Wednesday. Second Wednesday, yeah, that is 8, right? March 8. Yeah, you can.
March 9th.
Oh, March 9th. Mm-hmm.
So that'd be good to know if the CSEC wants to make to your March meeting, or if you did in February, then you would need to reschedule your Joint Climate Action Subcommittee to a different date. So it'd be good for Travis and myself to know what the pleasure of the CSCC is.
Commissioner Blattner, do you want to?
Well, I'd like to meet a month earlier and have climate move over a month. We could change those because we need to get our list of priorities here that we want and get to the city council fast.
Thank you. Speed up. Yeah, it's great. Mr. Alabak, please.
Could we possibly reschedule the climate subcommittee for, maybe a Thursday that's in the same week, so that we don't end up having to put that off for another month, or, try to fit that in so that we don't lose our place there on that as well?
Anybody comments? How about Commissioner Morrow?
Thank you. As the other member from the CSEC on the Joint Committee, I fully agree with Fred. The more we delay, the more we delay. Let's move it along quickly on both fronts with both the CSEC and the Joint Committee. As to Ms. Jansen's commentary, I am not insisting on good science. I'm often a good scientist in terms of vehicle miles traveled. I want to send a message that it's the critical piece of transportation that's causing the major impact on our climate, and we need to get people thinking and talking about it. You do that by having surveys at events. If we're going to sponsor events as a city, we need to be sensitive to vehicle miles traveled in every way that we can.
Thank you, Commissioner Morrow. Vice Mayor Barnett, please.
Can I ask a question to Commissioner Morell, and just to talk about this issue a little further? I guess, what is the goal of learning about that? I mean, So let's find out, or let's say we discover that a significant number of people come to our plaza events from places far and wide, and that we have significant VMT. What would we do with that information?
Well, the first thing, are we on? Mayor Ding, am I on?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to stay within the Roberts rules and respond to Kelso. There's a variety of positives, in my view, from this for the team. It gets people thinking, from the organizer of the event to encourage carpools, to the participants in the event to see how they can come. Is it worth coming? To get people communicating with one another about the critical aspect of plunking yourself in a single person vehicle and coming to a special event. This is part of the broader issue in my mind, and I wear a second hat, as many on this call know, as the president of the board of directors of the Sonoma Ecology Center and one of our leaders on climate action, that the more people think about the climate emergency, the more they act respectfully with respect to carbon emissions. By staying silent on it, as a sponsor of the event, we are guilty as a city for encouraging more climate emissions. So that's what you do with it. You talk about it, you begin to puzzle about it, you begin to think about eventually getting a grant, either at the city or the Ecology Center, for an electric bus that comes in from Novato or Napa or the East Bay to an event. There's 1,000 things, Kelso, you can begin to do, and you do none of them if you stay with business as usual. And I would encourage Tom Conlon and others to jump in on this as well, as to the significance of this issue, which is why I've been very difficult about it for a year or so.
Thank you, Commissioner Morrow. The next is Commissioner Metzler and Weiss. Then you're next.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so I just wanted to dovetail with what Commissioner Morrell said. There's a lot of reasons why it would be beneficial to know how people are getting to plaza events. We've all been making lots of assumptions in terms of how many people really fly from overseas to come to events. How many people come to events who are coming from lodgings that are within easy bicycling distance of the plaza? How many people come from nearby cities where they would benefit from free shuttle buses? We don't know because we don't have that information. We can't make good decisions about things like bike lanes, about how many bike racks we need, about the environmental impact of how people get to the plaza without gathering that information. Once we had that information, there's a lot of ways that information can be used synergistically to benefit both the organizations that run the events and the people of Sonoma and the city and the visitors to the events, in terms of, if we find out that lots of people are coming from nearby where they could bicycle easily, providing some incentive, like entering a lottery for a small, or offering door prizes or something like that for people, to encourage people to bicycle instead of driving, or encouraging people to ride a shuttle bus if that proves feasible. But we can't make those decisions without that information. So if we're really serious about climate change, we need that information, because transportation to major events in the plaza is a significant environmental impact, a greenhouse gas producing activity that the city is part of, and we need that information to be able to try and reduce those greenhouse gases.
Thank you, Commissioner Metzler. Next one is Commissioner Weiss.
Thank you, Mayor Ding. This is a long game, and the whole principle of awareness is just the beginning. I foresee, as it's been done in some other jurisdictions, for example, in New England, where there's a carrot and stick approach to these events, where people are charged less to participate in an event, maybe a marathon, if they come in carpools. It's a variation on what the airlines have done, where they give people an opportunity to defray their carbon load for whatever the flight might be they're taking. with United Airlines, you can actually pay an extra $56 to offset what carbon you're contributing if you're flying from San Francisco to Dallas, say. If people carpool, if people take shuttle buses, if they park in a particular place. And how these things will work out is part of our challenge for the future. But without the beginning of awareness, it's not going to happen. So I must say I agree with Commissioner Morell, Commissioner Metzler. And this is the start of a program that we really have to follow through on.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Wise, for your wisdom and great points. Yeah, thank you. Councilmember Agramonte, sorry, you're gonna miss you.
No, just very quickly. You know, I've worked with the Transportation Authority, the bus people. You know, we have a free bus up to Boys Springs, back and forth. It's a wonderful program. They also have free passes that are provided to homeless people, to Los Gallegos, or going up to Santa Rosa, because free bus stops at the border of Boys Springs. But 2 years ago, we had a free bus that brought people from Boys Springs to the Tuesday night market. And you know what, possibly the issue was marketing, but we could not fill those buses. And they dropped them off down on Broadway, Malay, is that the street? I mean, that's where it would start and into Boys Springs, but we just didn't, you know, it just stopped because I didn't feel that they had enough patrons. Free, it was free.
Yeah. I remember, Councilmember Agramonte, you used to spend a lot of the time to let it happen for free in a shuttle bus between the springs to the town, yeah.
Right.
If possible, when it is opened up, maybe we can work together and continue this program.
Yeah, maybe that's something that could be pursued.
Yes.
When
Yeah.
we're back together, you know, when there are actually more crowds.
Yeah, basically we cannot do a bigger thing, overnight to change it. We just little by little, yeah.
Yeah, and I also know that that same authority agency of Sonoma County are looking for places to be able to have electrified EV buses. And they actually wanted to charge a bus on the plaza. And now that idea has changed to possibly out to the corporation yard or somewhere else. So they're actually looking at that now, and it's Brian Albee is the person that's responsible.
Great, wonderful, yeah. Do I miss anything or anybody? Okay, Juanette, please.
Yes, thank you. And I appreciate what Commissioner Morell and Metzler had to say. You know, it's a genuine question. I'm learning a lot about this, and I've had conversations with Commissioner Morell and Fred, or Chair Allbach, and you know, I just find it, there's obviously, and I'm probably not saying anything that certainly the CSEC already doesn't know, but there seems to be a disconnect here because we as a city, you know, through our TID, you know, we collect taxes and send it to the Visitors Bureau to market Sonoma to the world, to the state, to the country, to the Bay Area. And we want as many people to come to Sonoma from as far away and as close as possible. And now I'm also hearing at these events, we want to know where people are coming from to possibly not necessarily discourage, but learn more about it. And there's clearly just a disconnect here. And from what I've learned, obviously transportation and the emissions from transportation are one of the biggest drivers of you know, greenhouse gases. And it seems like moving forward, you know, obviously, hopefully, you know, fingers crossed that we will be saved by technology. And obviously we can't rely on that, but I'm just pointing out I'm not really contributing anything, but pointing out the obvious disconnect between a city that is geared toward travel and tourism and hospitality and people coming from far and wide, and basically what we're being asked to do at these special events. And I'm just wondering if we rectify that, if possible. Maybe not.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Chair Allbach, do you have any, you know, points in a final conclusion or?
I'm not sure that I can sew a thread through the whole night's conversation here. I think that City Manager Toy's idea to run all of the agenda items through the CSEC first to get some clarity and then send it to the council sounds like a reasonable way to proceed on that. I think that Kelso, our Vice Mayor Barnett, brings up a really good point, and that's one point that I made to the Climate Committee about the city's sustainability page and sustainable tourism, is that disconnect that was mentioned just is clear there, and there should be a way that we can start to address these things by talking about triple bottom line sustainability paradigm, and that itself is kind of simplistic, and it maybe doesn't capture the whole sense of the scope of the problem, but it's a way to start talking about it. And I would think that that the city's sustainable tourism page is a really good place to start to kind of rectify that disconnect and enlarge it from plaza events to the city's sustainable tourism policy, which there are sustainable tourism. You could get a PhD in that. There's all kind of papers on it about what you do, and so you don't just serve the tourists. You serve the city, you serve the future, and you serve the people who serve the tourists, and that would be what sustainable tourism would be. And so there's inventive ways that the city could do that. And I think it's really worth discussing and moving towards in the future. I don't think we're going to do that tonight, but I'm very sympathetic to what Tom Conlon has brought up, and what Tom has said makes me want to work harder. And I know that that I want to do that in a good way here with the city, and just pull for the best that we can do on climate change. And so I think that's all I've got to say tonight.
Thank you so much. Anyway, yeah, I think today we had a wonderful meeting, sharing each other. And also the climate change definitely is the big issue. And also, we need thinking globally as well, internationally. As far as I know right now, on the local and the nonprofit ecology center is working with our sister city, Sonoma sister city in the commission. They want to set up the youth and the programs, and let out the 7 sister cities also know how important to protect our climate and globally. So it was that they went and arrange 7 different trees, and probably they want to send over different countries and pass over a friendship and pass over an important message how to provide our committee, our global. So that I believe that our committee, Sonoma Valley, everything is on the top of the the things. So we need to follow up, and as everybody say that the climate and the change and transportation method change, and where in some way finally also will have the cultural change. How we can face the future definitely is a big topic. So if nobody wants to say anything, I would like to adjourn the meeting. So how about Mr. Toy? Do you think it's time, or if anybody have anything want to share? No?
We have enough direction. So we'll have a CSEC on February 9th, and Travis will work with the JCA Joint Climate Action Subcommittee to find another date.
That's great. All right. Thank you, everyone. I will adjourn the meeting. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.